this is my review of Sonic X. Okay, so this episode is actually the first episode of the Emerl saga, and also this episode kind of serves sort of as a standalone episode because, for the most part, it doesn't introduce too many plot points except for the existence of Emerl, who is a robot from Sonic Advance 3, and he's kind of introduced in this part as a sort of antagonist. But it also serves as a standalone episode because the plot kind of just doesn't have, because the overall plot of this episode doesn't have anything to do with the overall plot of the episode except for the fact that Emerl exists, and I'll get to that in a minute. So the episode starts off with Bokkun waking up Emerl in an abandoned Eggman base, and he wakes it up and asks it for help in breaking Dr. Eggman out of prison, and Emerl, though it doesn't say a word, openly accepts Bokkun's invitation to help and leaves with Bokkun. And this is the primary plot of the episode, by the way. It starts off with Chris and his family watching the news, and Sofia Garcia is reporting about how a new craze is basically taken over of Station Square. Apparently, because of Sonic, a new craze where people have decided to run to stay in shape has actually taken over because they've been inspired by how much Sonic can do with his own two legs and decided to give it a shot. So, yeah, it just kind of take over and is just a little bit amusing that that's a thing that's happening. But as everybody's watching the news, Amy barges in looking for Sonic, and she's understandably she's unusually upset. She's kind of blowing it a little bit out of proportion, but we'll do later find out what's going on with her. Eventually she calms down enough to explain what's going on, which is that Sonic apparently asked her out and then didn't show up. So, and she's looking for him because she has no idea where he is, and is a little upset because she had actually bought a new hair accessory and shoes for their date. So she's very, very pissed off, and understandably so, since Sonic just kind of disappeared without trace and hasn't explained where he is. We find out later where he is, but that's beside the point. But Chris and Cream reassure her, pointing out that he's most likely just running late and he'll probably show up any minute. At which point they get a knock on the door, and Amy immediately rushes to the door, believing it's Sonic, but then discovers that it's actually Sam at the door. And Sam reveals that he actually was planning to race Sonic that day, and he had made an appointment with Sonic ahead of time. And then she realizes that they both got stood up, and is understandably pretty upset about that, because apparently Sonic can't keep any of his appointments because he's Sonic. I mean, Sonic is the kind of guy who's just kind of lives by the seat of his pants and doesn't really care, and sometimes he forgets about things. So it's pretty understandable that he would sometimes actually forget about his date with Amy and his race with Sam. In any case, Amy is upset about the fact that Sonic didn't show up, and Sam asks Chris what's going on, and Chris tells his uncle that Sonic no-showed, and they both got stood up. At which point Amy has a brilliant idea. They should go on a date instead and do something together. Which I have several problems with. First and foremost being that Sam's speed is well into his 30s and Amy is like less than half that age. So, yeah, that's a little uncomfortable to me. But it really doesn't factor much into the episode. But in any case, Sam agrees and Chris tells him that he needs to be careful. But Sam remarks that he once set a world record for speed dating, so he's not really concerned about time all that much. At which point they go out and Sam is kind of just showing off his new car and barely listening to Amy, who is kind of ranting about the fact that Sonic just kind of feels like Sonic just doesn't care about her. And even though she's not really paying attention, which she accuses him of, it turns out that he was listening the whole time, and points out that that maybe she should just forget about Sonic and just go with the flow for now. And Amy decides that he's right and decide that they should go to a place where Sonic would never go, the beach, because Sonic can't swim, and that's a perfect place to get away from him. And she also asks that he doesn't bring up Sonic again, which he happily agrees to. And they with that they proceed to go to the beach. At which point we cut to Dr. Eggman, who is in prison, is upset about the fact that he's in prison, and Dingo and Bokkun understandably ask him how long it's going to take for them to get out, and he states that it'll be any minute once the rescue team comes, which we know is Bokkun and Emerl, and it's revealed why Sonic actually stood Amy up. As it turns out, he was battling with Bokkun, who has used Emerl to take over a tank and Emerl is basically controlling the tank like it's an extension of his own body. So, yeah, Sonic kind of has his work cut out for him, and he's upset mainly because he knows that Bokkun is planning to break Eggman out of prison, but is also upset that he had to skip his date with Amy. But he's more concerned about in the now and is trying to actually trying to defeat Bokkun and stop his tank, and Bokkun is having a bit of a hard time of it because it's Sonic, but he even points out the gun at him in point blank range and it misses somehow. So yeah, Bokkun and Emerl are not having a fun time. But in any case, it then cuts back to Amy and Sam, who are in the middle of a field with a bunch of sheep, and Amy accuses Sam of not knowing where he is, which Sam does confirm he doesn't really know where he is, because sometimes he confirms that sometimes he does get lost a little bit. And Amy gets really upset about that, and he asks them to go to a convenience store so they can pick up a map. At which point Amy walks in asking for a map and then brings up how Sonic would never have let her staying around. But the guy in the convenience store actually gives her the map free of charge, because as it turns out, Sonic saved his grandson when he got stuck on a horse that he couldn't a while back, and he decides to replay the favor to Sonic and every single one of his friends. With that he gives the map free of charge. And with that, they leave, and they realize that Sonic isn't a bad guy, and that he just sometimes gets confused a little bit. At which point it cuts back to Sonic, who has successfully defeated the tank that Emerl is controlling and knocks Bokkun on his butt. At which point Bokkun reveals that he was actually a decoy, and that he was just holding Sonic's attention while another robot broke Eggman out of prison. At which point Bokkun tries to leave, but Sonic knocks him in the head with a piece of brick, and Bokkun goes crashing into the ground, and he is eventually revealed to have been arrested as well and sent to the same prison Eggman is in. So get to that in a minute, but afterwards he realizes that there is indeed another robot loose and heading for Station Square, which is where Amy and Sam's arc comes in. As it turns out, the robot they are outside the convenience store getting ready to leave when the robot suddenly shows up in a giant locomotive type thing and is barreling toward the Station Square. At which point Sam and Amy decide to chase after her in Sam's car, and Sam calls headquarters. Apparently they think that thing is heading to the prison where Dr. Eggman is located, and that they need to stop it as soon as possible. At which point Sam and Amy decide to work together, and point out that if Sam can get close enough to the locomotive robot thing, that Amy will be able to hit it with her hammer. And they do exactly that. He switches his car to racing mode, which kind of transforms it into the standard car that we've known him seen up to this point, and then proceeds to race after it, cuts it off and turns around and barrels straight at it. At which point, and Amy only has one shot to hit it, and she does, and it blows up with her hammer. It's still stuck in it. So, or wherever her hammer is, it's just kind of maybe gone, maybe not. She probably picks it up at some point. I don't know. But as she's racing, Sam points out that she should take a moment to appreciate it, because they're actually going at how fast Sonic normally is. And Amy feeling the sensation that that Sonic normally feels when he runs all the time, finally realizes that's why Sonic runs so much. It just feels good. So at which point they go to the beach, and Amy thanks Sam for the date and is happy with how it turned out. At which point Sam remarks that it's not over, that the day's not over yet, and that they could still be surprised. At which point Sonic, fresh off his fight with Bokkun and Emerl, shows up at the beach and apologizes for being late. And Amy rushes up to Sonic, believing that he cares, only for Sonic to just blow right past her and reveal that he was actually greeting Sam instead. And then they have their race, much to Amy's chagrin. But in case it cuts back to prison, where Dr. Eggman is upset at Bokkun for failing, and Bokkun is just upset is just kind of crying because he knows that Dr. Eggman is mad at him. But in any case, it's dinner time, and as Cream and Cheese are getting ready to head back inside, they discover Emerl, apparently having been flown free from the explosion, somehow having landed in the bush outside of the Thorndike residence, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense considering the location and geography, but for whatever reason, it's just kind of here. I don't really understand why it's in the bush. I really don't. It was nowhere near where it would have been for the explosion to actually happen. So it's a little weird. It's a little weird that this just kind of happened. I'm not entirely sure how, but it just kind of is there. But in any case, Cream discovers Emerl in the bush, and that's where the episode ends. I'm not entirely... So, yeah, for the most part, this episode is just a standalone episode about Amy being upset that Sonic ruined their date, and they're supposed to be their first date, actually, and then that didn't happen, at which point she went out with Sam, found out through Sam just how much Sonic actually appreciates his speed, and why he does. And then they take down a robot that Sonic was fighting and didn't know that he was fighting, which is why he stood her up. So, and the robot somehow just wound up in the bush outside the Thorndike residence. No real explanation to that. I don't really understand how that happened. I think the idea is that it got flown free from the explosion and somehow landed in the bush. I don't really know. I don't really know what happened. All I know is that it did, and I'm not entirely sure what happened. But in any case, yeah, that's my review of Sonic X. I'm not entirely sure how Emerl wound up outside of the Thorndike residence, but other than that, I enjoyed the episode. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that I'm not always saying thanks. So be sure to check those out in the description below as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And also next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!